Good morning to all of you to the second day of our 12th International R3.0 Conference 2025. It's the second of 3 days that we're going to be together to help steward coherence in the broader bioregional movement. Yesterday was already a very packed and energizing day. We hope that today will be the same for you. Just a couple of things that we want to repeat also because we think it is necessary, also based on our experience from yesterday. And for some of you, of course, it will just be a repetition. Just general Zoom etiquette. We want to ask you to please stay muted while you're listening to the sessions and keep your video on whenever that is possible. There are parts of the sessions where we can also see each other then, but also turn it off whenever it's needed. A very strong plea to please refrain to leave and re-enter the Zoom line multiple times during sessions and mute yourself when entering. I'm saying this because yesterday we had more than 500 approaches of people trying to re-enter because they left. Some of that is, of course, due to climate change, to weather effects, to internet connections, but not all of that. So in the case that you really need to step out, why don't you just please mute yourself and go off video, but please don't leave the room all the time. This was an unbearable act for one of our staff members yesterday. When you come in, like you already did, please rename yourself if necessary for clear identification with your full name and your place, or if you're a conference organizer, please mention your name and bioregion. We want to really know who you are and not what your avatar's names are. On questions, yesterday we introduced the idea that you please post questions to the chat sidebar, and please focus your question on substantive issues. So no character attacks, no unnecessary distractions, and especially no bigger, longer side conversations that are visible to all or undue self-promotion. We reserve the right to delete such conversations not related to the content discussed. This is also for us to harvest questions for the later discussion, so please be as less or not destructive as all. We have an extra living resource document. The link is mentioned here, and Bill will also post it in the chat already. You can input additional information, you can input documents, whatever you want to add to that, and we will share that afterwards as well. And if you want to be named, if you want to be identified, please put your name there as well. We are also deleting any attempts of AI transcription software or note takers, because all sessions will be recorded and made available on September 18. So we delete attempts of AI accounts to enter. As you already know from yesterday, after the first part of the day, which is around about 3 hours, which is very long, and only there's a one-time 10 minutes break in between, we break for 45 minutes. Including in this 45 minutes is an optional 10 minutes rejuvenating mindful movement exercise that Jennifer is also going to do with the aim to help you to relieve screen and seating fatigue. And before we start the second session, there is again a 15-minute bioregional art performance before that session actually starts. As we've already seen on social media, there is a lot of traffic already happening around our conference. We encourage you to share conference learnings on social media, and thanks to all of those who have done that already. And tomorrow, just to let you know, after the end of the session, we want to invite you to raise a glass with us, a virtual glass, a beer, wine, whatever you want to put into your glass, and then adjourn at your convenience. And as yesterday, we try to have much fun together in digesting the avalanche of learning that we have already prepared for you. In the vein of that, we want to bring up a quote from Brian Popper from Legacy Project. You heard Susan Bosak his colleague yesterday, and this is something which I think is useful also for the introduction of our first session. Coherence requires intentional practice since we're so used to reducing our thinking to isolated bits. The conference is a good chance to practice. The conference organizers have put a lot of work into making the conference coherent, a whole story, but coherence is relational. Participants will benefit most if they bring their whole selves to the conference, engage with the entire program, and if they can't attend live, view all the recordings so that they're taking in all the coherence that has been carefully built into the conference. So with that, we're moving into our second day. We have an intro session, which will be an Embodying ProSocial Matrix exercise by Jennifer Nucci, and Bill is actually going to introduce her to us.
Thank you, Ralph. And I will make this brief because we really want to get into this practice that Jennifer will be leading us through. All that I'll say is that Jennifer, Ralph, and I went through the ProSocial Facilitator training, and in particular, Jennifer, our engagement architect here at r3.0, innovated an embodied approach, a somatic approach to the ProSocial Matrix that we have used. Jennifer has facilitated it in group sessions before now. So given the role of prosociality in the bioregional movement, we felt like it would be really helpful for all of you to experience this process. So with that, I will hand it over to Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Warm greetings to all of you. And today we're going to do something very reflective as a balancing agent to our work so far and all the deep learning. So for this reflection time, it's going to be reflection time. You are very welcome to have something to write with, to record your thoughts and feelings. And whether you decide to write things down or not, you will not really need to look at your screen. So that'll be a good relief to start the day. But you'll need to listen in order to receive what I can offer you today. And we're gathered together in this conference because we are moved to participate toward actions of healing in our world, in our communities. We're willing to learn and change and explore and hope and grow toward deeper life-serving relationships. So in this work, in our living, we encounter so many motivations and forces that move us to action and move us to inaction. Some of what I'm offering today is inspired by the ProSocial Matrix, which is a simple exercise that supports psychological flexibility and tunes into the forces that move us forward and backward. And I'll add sideways and down and up, and we're moved to expand and collapse. We might also notice whether we feel like these forces come from inside of us or outside of us, noticing the story, the reality, the influence of the ecology and the economy, the systems around us. So these things are simply already alive in us, these forces, these aspects of interacting with our connectedness in this complex time. So can take a deep breath. Maybe invite your body into a deep breath. Today, I'm inviting us to look carefully at one particular kind of force, a force that we ourselves can take ownership of, the force of our emotions. So this time right now is for honoring our emotional intelligence and honing our emotional flexibility by spending time feeling and listening to some of the emotions that naturally arise when we are fully, deeply, and authentically engaged with life. Today, we're going to begin with a guided reflection that invites our expansive emotional awareness to be strengthened so that we can meet our sacred obligations and responsibilities. so that we can energize our empathy and our open-mindedness, so that we can stay present, really listening, really engaged when life and work are painful. We need our resilience, our resolve, our clarity, our humility, our kindness, our solidarity in order to be strong. So this practice we're going to do today is one to nurture that kind of strength. Emotions have wisdom in them. Emotions are powerful forces. When we are motivated by unconscious emotion, we often shut down when we need to open up. Sometimes we push ahead when we need to slow down. We get stuck. We hide. We miss the deeper meaning, and our pain increases. So unconscious, unrecognized emotion often turns into projections upon others of those emotions, and that we can't even see it. So by simply and calmly breathing, spending time feeling and listening to the emotions that live in us, we learn how to relax more with how we feel. When we can relax and center ourselves, we gain energy. When we can stay with whatever is challenging instead of shutting down or turning away, we find ourselves living into the natural healing quality that already abides in us. We come to understand life more deeply and grow up into greater empathy. So we're going to begin. And so again, for much of this time, you may just wish to close your eyes, because then you can focus on your inner sensing. Let your inner sensing be your primary focus. You are totally welcome to turn off your video if you want, and just let this really be your own space. We begin with breath. Your breath is with you right now. You can close your eyes and feel the flow of the air, and turn your attention inward to your body and see if you can help your body be comfortable. If you're tired, be tired. If you need gentleness, offer yourself gentleness. You can float into this reflection time or dive in. Whatever I'm offering here, always, always make it your own. Make it your own. So you can receive some nourishment, some release or benefit. And whatever language I use, if it's the wrong language for you, please just turn it into your own language inside yourself. This is an embodied practice. So maybe you'd like to put a hand to your heart, to your belly, in this field of your being, which includes very deeply your body full of air, full of light, in the field of your being, which is full of pulse and thought and silence. In the field of your being, you inhabit the home of yourself, the home of yourself with the ground below you. You might feel your feet on the ground, your sitting bones. The cosmos above you as your head is lifted. If you're lying down, your front body is open to the sky. Earth and air and light all around you and within you. In the home of yourself, you are pulled, drawn, pushed, propelled, stepping, leaping, reaching out, huddled in, curling up, sinking, falling, standing tall, rising up, opening and closing, expanding and contracting, holding and releasing. So much movement, so many forces at play inside of you and outside of you. In the home of yourself lives the wisdom and guidance and challenge of your emotions. Here's a new breath. Each breath is a new beginning and an ending. We're going to visit 5 emotions: anger, fear, grief, joy, and love. So as you breathe, I wonder if you can imagine resting and dropping into the seat of your centered self. Imagine turning inward, seeking out your centered self. Sometimes it's good to give yourself a little wiggle, a little stretch, exhale, so you can feel it. Here you are in your body. You can feel and sense your body in space and the movement of your breath. In the seat of your centered self, with your deep breath. And as you are willing, see if you can travel into your emotional body, your feeling body. Our first emotion is anger. And it is difficult to just drop into a sensing of an emotion. So you may do a couple things. First, especially with difficult emotions, take refuge in your compassionate heart. So you take a moment to feel this capacity you have of your compassionate heart. When we live in the compassionate heart, it's easier to approach our painful and difficult emotions. Your slow, deep breath will help you find the feeling of compassion, the heart of your heart. We sit ourselves in our centered self so we can make this emotional journey inward more possible. Compassion is expansive. So perhaps you can breathe into this feeling of your strong heart, your strong compassion. That will help you, if you rest there, to gaze inwardly at your own anger. And if you cannot find your anger, some of us can find our anger right away. We know where anger lives in our body. We're familiar with anger, and you know it's there. But if you're having trouble finding your anger, use a skillful thought. You can let yourself think of something or someone that generates a feeling of anger for you with a deep breath. And that can be very uncomfortable. We're not actually trying to energize the anger. We're just trying to locate that feeling. From your calm, centered self, you're observing, you're witnessing yourself. And you're calling up attention to your anger. And once you've found your anger, focus just on the feeling, on the energy of it. Let the story go. Let the memory, the thought go that drew you there if you needed to use that. And let's focus on the sensations, the feeling of anger. Where do you feel it in your body? Hello, my anger, my frustration, my rage, my exasperation, my disgust. Hello there. Deep breath. Got to breathe it down into your belly. I greet you with my breath, my attention. You need your deep breath here. Hello, my anger. What do you feel like? How do I feel about you, oh my anger? How do I feel about you? Try to empty out all the way. Try to draw your breath all the way down into your belly. Anger often lives, rage especially often lives in the belly. How do you move me? How do you move me? What is your role in my life? Oh, my anger. What is my relationship with you, What does it feel like? And just today, just in this moment, you can rock forward and back. Sometimes it's really helpful. It's quite a soothing action, especially with hands to your heart and your belly. Oh, my anger, breathing and feeling, how do you color my perspective, my thoughts? I'm listening to my anger. Relying on your deep breath, trusting in your deep breath. Oh, my anger, is there something you want to tell me? You're just listening. Let out that stronger exhale. In this feeling body that we all have, as you contact your anger, you might notice, is there any of this anger energy in me that I wish to channel differently, perhaps into a transformed state? Maybe my anger energy becomes determination. And maybe it's part of my perseverance if I can breathe it deep in my belly, my endurance. Perhaps my anger carries some deep information about my healthy boundaries. Yeah. Rub your chest, massage your chest if you like. Deep belly breath. Good. We're going to transition. So remember, this is emotional flexibility. Just make some movements with your body. We're going to touch on these emotions. We're acknowledging that they're here underneath the motivations of this deep and difficult work that we do. So if you're ready, we want to shake it off. We want to shake out your body a little bit. When ducks, right, meet each other, they have a squabble, and then they release from that squabble. They shake it out. They shake it all out. They exhale, and then they turn and they immediately swim off in this most serene, calm way. So shake it out. See if you can deep breathe and serenely swim in the body, in the water of your body, into a new direction, back to the center of yourself. Quiet, deep water of your being. Maybe find a grateful thought. We're trying to keep it moving. How do our thoughts, our skillful thoughts help us? Find a skillful, grateful thought, something, one aspect of life you feel easily grateful for, and rest into your heart. A little inner smile, centering yourself in the home of yourself and feeling your breath. Please notice that your inhale is expansive. As you expand more and more, your exhale becomes more complete. Fullness follows emptiness. Emptiness naturally follows fullness. And you're breathing with earth, and you're breathed by earth. rubbing your chest, hand on your belly in the refuge of your compassionate heart. With your deep breath, and as you are willing, I invite you to tune in, feel into your fear. Hello, my fear, my anxiety, my fearful anxiety, my worry. I greet you with my breath and my attention. What do you feel like in my body? Relying on your strong, steady breath, where do I feel you in my body? How do you act upon me? How do you move me? Any movements you need? Maybe your jaw starts to tighten. You need to massage your jaw. Maybe you need to massage your scalp while you tune in. Where do I feel fear in me? What does it bring up? Use a skillful thought. If you can't find your fear, I bet you could think of something that brings up some fear. And you don't have to go deep. We're touching. What is your role, oh my fear? What is your role in my life? How do you color my perspective? Deeply breathing, listening to your fear. Is there something you want to tell me? Oh, my fear, is there something essential about you for me? Breathing and listening to yourself. Movement is good. Breath is good. Imagine yourself bigger than any of these emotions on the inside. Your big inhale is so expansive. Your compassionate heart is so expansive that we can hold these emotions. We can hold them well. We can listen for any wisdom and guidance within from our emotions. And we hold them well for ourselves, for our children, our children's children, our neighbors, our friends, our community of people and animals and earth who are living, who are dying. We hold these emotions well. Hello, oh my fear. A very deep breath. Anger and fear, definitely as teachers, some of our teachers, responsibility for the way we hold these emotions. Deep breath into this recognition of our responsibility, our obligations to be fully alive as human beings in order to stay present. When you're ready, we're going to transition. You got to shake it out. You got to exhale, roll your shoulders, shake it out. So you release that hold, the way fear tightens. Good. Good. And you breathe yourself back to your center, that quiet, deep water of your being. Find a skillful thought of gratitude. Again, move your thoughts. Think of one aspect of life that draws you into gratitude. You can feel easy gratitude. Feel that gratitude, the way it lifts you up. It gives you energy. It stabilizes you. And here we are in a new moment, a new breath. Here we are together, centering yourself in the home of yourself and feeling your breath. I'm starting to cry already because we're moving toward grief. Please notice that your inhales become expansive and your exhales help you to empty out. Fullness follows emptiness. Emptiness naturally follows fullness. You are breathing with earth. You are being breathed by earth. In the seat of your centered self, taking refuge in your compassionate heart and with your deep breath. And as you are willing, I invite you to feel your grief, your sadness. It's important to remember and honor our grief. Is there a remembrance for you that will help you to connect to the sadness that may be alive in you today? Some of us carry grief with us all the time. It never goes away. Some of us need to use a skillful thought and find your sadness for a moment. You can just touch. You don't have to go deep. Hello, my grief. Hello, my sadness. You can rock forward and back. You help me. My grief, you help me to tune into the flow of life and death. I grieve because I love. I grieve because I love. Hello, my grief. I greet you with my breath and my attention. How do you feel in my body? What do you do to me? How do you influence me in my body? Can I breathe you? How do you move me or stop me? And just keep breathing and see if you can bring motion into your body, because grief really tightens us up at the throat, tightens the lungs up. Try to keep your lungs opening up, expanding and contracting. My grief, what is your role in my life? What is my relationship to you like? Listening to your breath. Oh, my grief, how do you color my perspective? I breathe into my sadness. I breathe into you, oh, my sadness, in order to feel you, give you time and space, because you need life, you need your life. And I do this now to listen to you, to hear what you have to tell me, to notice the ways that maybe you're essential for me and the ways I need to let go. Oh, my grief, oh, my sadness. Breathing. Stay with your body. You can massage your neck. You can massage your jaw a little bit. Keep breathing, focusing inward to your sadness. honoring your grief can rub the heart, honoring your feeling heart, your deep feeling heart. And start to transition. So moving the shoulders, breathing, shaking out, exhaling, releasing the hold of sadness from your body. These emotions are integrated into our cells, into our being. They have intelligence in our bodies. Exhaling strongly again. You're breathing yourself back to your center. This is a skill too. Breathing yourself back to your center. Turn inward. The quiet, deep water of your being. The still, expansive center of your being. The wisdom of grief carves us deep into empathetic creatures of earth. Listening deeply to grief, we come to know what matters. We remember what matters. Embracing our grieving hearts is an act of courage and a maturation that imparts stability. Surprisingly enough, breathing deeply into grief, letting ourselves be carved out by our grief, coming back to gratitude imparts a depth that brings stability. And here is a new moment, another new moment. Centering yourself in the home of yourself, find a grateful thought, a skillful, grateful thought. Thoughts are amazing. Draw yourself into a thought of that where the gratitude is available, the feeling of gratitude is available to you right now. Find your thought. Notice that your inhale becomes expansive and allows you to exhale more completely. Breathe into the feeling of your gratitude and let that feeling spread. Let the feeling of gratitude be very free in your body. Fullness follows emptiness. Emptiness naturally follows fullness. You are breathing with earth. You are being breathed by earth. From your seat, the seat of your centered self, with your deep breath, and as you are willing, I invite you to feel your joy, your joy. Is there a remembrance for you that will help you connect to your joy? Joy is not always easy to find for everyone. So sometimes, even with joy, you may need to use a memory. Think of a person, an animal, a place where you experience joy, and you're going to try to generate the feeling of joy. This is one of our most important practices as people who do difficult work in the world that needs a sense of endurance and perseverance. You need your joy. Find your joy, breathing deeply, and move your body. Move a little bit. Find your joy. Feel your feet on the ground. Oh, my joy, hello. Hello, my joy. I greet you with my breath, my attention. What do you feel like in my body, and where do I feel you? How do I feel you, oh, my joy? How do you move me? What does my relationship with joy feel like? Oh, my joy, what is your role in my life? And what do I want your role to be in my life? Oh, my joy, How do you color my perspective, my thoughts? I'm listening to you, oh my joy, and I'm encouraging you to nourish me. Let the feeling of joy sink into your bones, spread throughout your body. It's good to soak in your joy, your contentment, your happiness. Come back to your skillful thought to generate your joy whenever you need to. We're going to let joy move right into love. Right? We're going to go straight into love. Yeah. In the seat of your centered self and your expansive being with your breath. And as you are willing, I invite you to feel your love. And is there a remembrance for you that will help you connect to your love? Is there a person, a place, a moment, a hug that you can remember? In your body, can you feel your loving heart, your loving presence, this capacity of your heart to feel and act upon loving kindness? Such a deep breath. I greet you, oh my love, with my breath and my full attention. How do you feel in my body? How do you motivate me? How do you move me? What is your role in my life like? What do I want it to be? How do you color my perspective, my thoughts? At our best, we are deeply emotional beings. At our best. From the seat of your centered self, you may wish to inwardly bow and thank yourself for the courage to breathe into these reflections, to use your skillful thoughts, to move through your emotional body, the courage to steadily gaze inward and listen to yourself. You might like to thank your emotional body for keeping you so connected with life and what's important to you. Your ability to listen and open up to insight. These emotions do motivate us. They guide us. They are a vital part of our connection to each other and to Earth. Honoring your wholeness as a fully feeling creature, fully feeling being. Let's have 2 more minutes now, just silence with yourself, and then Bill will bring us back and toward the next moment. But right now, a couple minutes. Trust in your deep breath. Find your complete exhale, slow it down, calm your nervous system. And as you have a little break, I'll let you bring that in, Bill, but as you have a little break, be sure to stay with yourself, opening up to your insight and also listening to the releasing qualities you might need in your body. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'd actually like to invite people to hold on to this as a way to reflect after each speaker. I've been inviting people to slow down and reflect after each speaker, and maybe this will enable you to touch in on what the emotions that you're feeling from each speaker are. So let's hold this with us. We do have a 10-minute break to further take care of our bodies. So 10 minutes, we will gather back together at the top of the hour for our first session, panel session of the day on co-governance. And this one is exciting. We'll be doing it in person here at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center. So I'm going to head across the way and get mic'd up for that. So please enjoy your break and please come back maybe a minute before the hour to get settled in. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, welcome back. I know that Bill and his team is ready.
Yes, we are here.
Oh, there is a feedback. And no audio yet. Yes, muted.
I do this. How about now?
How are we doing now? Can you hear us, Ralph?
Yes, we hear you.
You hear? Yes, the catch is just turn that speaker off. I hear.
Right.
Okay.
So we can't hear them.
What?
Can we
Yeah,
go
because
through
we can't
yours
hear
then?
them.
We hear
Okay.
you well, Bill.
Go ahead and turn yours off. Mute. Okay. Ralph, can you just let me know by WhatsApp if you can hear us?
Yes, we hear you.
We're having to turn off the. Great. Okay, we are ready to go. Thank you all for continuing patience with technology. We all know that technology can introduce opportunities to express emotional flexibility. And in fact, as if on cue, there is a lawn mowing happening right now. So
Right outside the window.
so it's probably not audible to you, but we'll use that as another opportunity to experience joy in our situations. So I want to introduce this session in a special way. So this conference is about bioregionalism at a global scale. So most of our speakers, most of our panels are global panels. So we had people yesterday from Australia and India and Ecuador and here on Turtle Island in what's called the United States. We wanted to make one panel specific to a bioregion. And so we chose the bioregion that I am situated in, and my colleagues here with the Northeast Woodlands Bioregioning Collective. So this is the Northeast Woodlands bioregion to give you a sense of the work that's happening in one place so that you all can extrapolate out how you might apply this kind of work in your bioregions. We're also, as I've mentioned many times, we are coming to you from the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center. And so what we'll be sharing in this panel is integrally linked into the cultures that are intersecting here at the Museum and Research Center and in our work at the Northeast Woodlands Bioregioning Collective. So the panel, we will have 3 speakers, and I'll be moderating. One speaker, as you can see, is not here yet, Mike Thomas, who is an elder with the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation and a board member of the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center, will be here shortly. Maggie Favretti is a member of the Northeast Woodlands Bioregioning Collective, and also she is one of the founding chairs of the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, and that's part of what she'll be sharing today. And we have Rashad Young, who is also a co-director of the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, and is also with the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation, particularly doing language recovery work there. And so this session is focused on the issue of co-governance. And that is a term that I actually first encountered in conversations with Maggie, with Z, who is the executive director of the Alliance, and Mike Thomas and others, to explain or to give name to the process of sharing power between different communities of action. And so that's our exploration today. And what I invite you all to do is to consider how you might be able to employ elements of or whole cloth this idea of co-governance. In particular, in our context, it is between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities and peoples. There may be other contexts that term or practice would apply for in your bioregion. So we're going to start things off handing over to Maggie to get us rolling with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Bill. It's
Screen sharing's not allowed. I need that.
Okay, Ralph, if you can just turn on screen sharing for the Northeast Woodlands version. And I see a note there, the sound is very good. So Ben, I'll use that as an opportunity to give a thanks to Ben Landry here, our camera and sound person, and Phil Lavalley is also helping us with tech, so thanks on that. Phil, are you able to share now? Great. We ready to roll?
Yeah.
Okay, Maggie, over to you.
awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone, all over the place, in so many places, and among so many people who are thinking about the same challenges that we are thinking about. It's an honor to be able to say that as a relative newcomer to this part of the world, I am in the process of remembering and remembering alongside Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Mohegan, Narragansett, the people who are local to this place, and the people who are most local to this particular place, and for whom the Mystic River watershed has special significance, are Pequot people. And so I'm not going to say anything more for the next minute or two and let Rashad introduce himself.
Kawikwasin and Atasuwis Waskata on the time Ashton Tucket, Nikani Naka Ayawa, Katapatam Shkitana, Washaki Manatu, Wachiwami Nishnachak. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rashad, and I am from Mashantucket. And before anything, I want to say thank you to the Great Spirit for giving us all things that we have. And I'm a member of the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation. I'm also a descendant of the Narragansett Indian tribe in Rhode Island. And the Mystic River and the watershed itself is actually part of my tribe's ancestral homelands. So it's important that we take care of it. And that's why I am a part of the watershed, thanks to Maggie here. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your friendship and conspiracy.
Of course.
So we will talk a little bit about what it means to be in alliance and what it means to be in this relationship. But I also want to acknowledge before we go forward that we are awaiting Mike Thomas, who is a Mashantucket elder who is on the board of this museum, who does more than anyone else in caring for both the tribal nation and the citizens of the tribal nation, as well as for the region and the bioregion. So we are sure he is up to some good this morning, and and when he gets here, you'll know it.
Hey, Sharon, bottom, I don't understand why they do something like Ralph said.
Ralph, are you doing any pausing on the screen sharing? Phil is saying that it's giving you pause. Nope. Okay, we'll keep going.
Oh, we'll make do. People hopefully have seen the first slide, which includes both the title of this presentation and also a very special place. The image on the first slide was the image of from the air of Long and Bush Ponds, as they're called today, and of Lantern Hill. And I wonder if maybe, Rashad, you could say a word or two about why Lantern Hill and Lantern Hill Pond, Long Pond are significant.
Well, Lantern Hill itself is one of our sacred sites here at Mashantucket and Eastern Pequot. It's a silica deposit, so it's a big quartz mountain, and at the bottom of it is a lake, a little pond, Lantern Hill Pond, and this was a place our people went, to fish, swim, etc. And actually, the waters were known as healing because of the silica deposits that come from the mountain and run off into the water. And nowadays, people like to go to these, these bathhouses, these like high-tech spa bathhouses, and they have the mineral water, and our people had them, for thousands of years. And also Long Pond is important because this was basically a main area where people lived and had their houses and villages on. So there's actually a large burial on one side of Long Pond that was excavated by the museum a few years back. And it was important because it showed that our people were here during the early 1600s, and during the Pequot War, which was called a war in history, but really it was a massacre. And the English had come in and they basically destroyed one of our forts on the Mystic River. And this was a burial place during that time period. So it showed that our people were all along the watershed in that area. Yep.
Bringing people home to that sacred place,
Right.
that healing place.
Right.
which brings me back to the title of this presentation, Remembering. Remembering in terms of this, right? Those of us who are newcomers being open to learning about this place in all of its contexts, in its relatively near-term history from the massacre forward, but also its long history of coevolution of humans among all of their relatives in this place, which also causes me to think that the remembering isn't just an act of recalling what has taken place in the past, but remembering is the opposite of dismembering, which is what happened when the colonists or the colonial settlers forced Pequot people to separate from each other, to move away from the water and their coastal lifeways, to separate them from their own language by force, and to separate them from the culture by force. So that dismemberment of this place has to be addressed when we think about what regeneration means and what relationship means in this context, right? We can't be allies unless I'm thinking all the time, remembering and remembering. And remembering with all of our relations, co-leadership with all of our relations. And when you say, Rashad, when you say all of our relations, who do you mean? And what's the word? Because maybe people need to know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, so the word on the first slide is Natankwasananak, and it literally means our relatives. And when we say our relatives, we're talking about basically all the things that the Creator put here with us. And, you know, one of the things that we say is that the Creator put us here with all these things, you know, the birds, the rivers, the forests, you know, the insects, everything, the rocks. And he put us here and he gave us the intelligence to be able to take care of these things. So where some people feel, and a lot of colonist ideologies, because we are smarter than other things in our mind, we are more important. But the way we look at it is different. We have a responsibility that the Creator gave us this knowledge to be able to take care of the things that he created. So Natankwasananak is our relatives, and that's all things that we're talking about, all things in creation.
Phil, can we go back one slide?
Can you go back?
I can't make it work.
All right, with that, where do you want to be?
That one.
There?
That one. Thank you. So we get to the concept of co-leadership. And we use the phrase co-leadership rather than co-governance because to govern implies a power hierarchy that makes us uncomfortable, as you will see, as we talk through the implications of separation or dismemberment. And the original separation that probably predicated the colonial attitude, shall we say, is the whole concept of the domestication of our four-legged relatives, going way, way back to the beginning of agriculture, which was also the beginning of Western civilization. Not that domestication didn't occur in other places, in other forms, but in this particular part of the world, the part of the world that also generated the colonists who came to this part of the world, domestication looked like this. And so we have an Egyptian image here of domestication of cattle, the aurochs being one of the first of those relatives to be domesticated. And In the process of doing that, because hunter-gatherer societies typically enlisted men and masculine energy as hunters, it was understood that they had a very close relationship with animal relatives and an understanding with animal relatives that made it possible for them to domesticate aurochs or ox. And so here are the oxen working with a male person, and pretty soon the product of the planting of the seeds, which were mainly the feminine energy, and the understanding was that women understood the life of plants, and they understood life, and they generated life. They generated future generations. They could feed future generations from their bodies. So typically women were the divine, right? Mother Earth. The female goddesses, the goddesses of fertility are all female. So the goddesses of life were female. And that translated in these early societies, pre-domestication, into women making all the decisions about what was good for their communities. And I think there's an element of that in Pequot culture too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in our culture, women actually were landowners. So when a woman became of age, there was a portion of cornfield that was basically allotted to her and her future family. So in certain situations, if somebody were to marry into the tribe here from a different area, the man would actually move to the woman's tribe and become part of that tribe because the woman had, land allotted for her and her family. Also, going along with the same thing that Maggie was speaking about of the energies here, in our culture, it's important that we point out to people that modern society has created, it kind of has perverted some of these roles in our society, and it's made people think that, one is better than the other, or just as a result of westernization. But in our culture, we didn't look at it as men go out and hunt because we're stronger than women and we don't want them to go hunting. It was more of men have a responsibility, and usually that responsibility has to do with taking away life. So hunting, going to war, men in our societies were more equipped. We have the biological structure to deal with the spiritual consequences of taking life away from something more than women who have actually, they're better equipped to bring life into the world. And we say that women actually have one foot in the spirit world and one foot out because the spirit has to come into them when they have a baby. So the spirit comes into them, and that's not something that happens with men. But with men, we remove the spirit from things. So our psychological, our physical builds are actually tailored towards those two things, which, like I said, becomes perverted in our modern society, in our, hyper-capitalist society where only one thing matters. Some of this other stuff gets lost and drowned out. But these are still things that I was taught and that our communities here still do. So keeping those things in mind, and Maggie's going to get more into it in the other slides, but this is one of the things that co-governance, I'm sure Maggie has taught me a lot of things, and I've taught Maggie a lot of things from my ancestors and my elders. And I think that having these conversations make everyone understand at a better level as to how we can protect our Mother Earth here. So
Thank you. Thank you. And also a beautiful segue back to the concept of co-leadership. Because to me, governance, because of this original separation from separating man and nature, and wait, I want to be on this one, yeah. Man and nature, and then man and woman, that we have this association in our minds with governing and men and governing and the masculine. And here's how it happens, right? As they begin plowing, they also begin reaping the benefits of that plowing. What's being instilled in their minds and in their culture eventually, generationally speaking, is that men have the right to govern nature, that they can control their environment, that they can control what comes of the land. They can control the animals by domestication. They can control women because they wanted eventually, right? If you're planting the land, you have these cattle, you own these cattle, they become your property. So the concept of private property emerges into this ancient culture. And when the concept of private property emerges, who is going to control that? Who's going to ensure that the private property of this particular pair of oxen or of this land that has been producing for my individual family, that gets passed on to my sons? So guess who writes the original laws about that? Men. Guess who gets appointed to enforce those laws and to judge those laws? Not women, but men. So in Western civilization, the domestication of animal relatives led to patriarchal government. Also, the idea that men, masculine energy, could dominate nature, which leads culturally to the sense of a feminization of nature, because man was also domesticating woman at this time by laws, right? Because the men were making the laws, they were also reducing women's power to make decisions, to run businesses eventually, even eventually to make the beer. So when this gets represented in Western civilization as the removal of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, when I see that, I feel dismemberment, right? I feel the attempt to dominate nature by man and men led to the original separation that we are still feeling the effects of today, and that has ultimately led to man's responsibility for runaway climate change and the impacts that go with it. And many of us recognize, right, the Taoist harmonious balance that Rashad was talking about. So we know that in ancient civilizations and ancient worldviews, that this balance was everything, right? That you don't have life. Life can't regenerate without this balance. And so we can't start talking about regeneration unless we're thinking about this balance. And that's the root of our co-leadership. So Mike isn't here, but I did borrow from one of the things that he said many times. I hope that he comes and
Mike.
he can pretend that they're Mike. Mike is unique and wonderful, and I hope that he comes to talk to this himself, but one of the things he says a lot, particularly when he's speaking with non-tribal friends and partners, is understand that I belong to the water and all of my relatives, not the other way around. And this does not make him an oddball, right? It situates him, and culturally, and Rashad, please talk about this in a moment, it situates him among global traditions that are present day guiding regenerative work and the work of people that we've heard from already and will be hearing from in this global confluence. Mother Teresa, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And we started with the human dominant split, right? Separation by domestication of man from nature, which is an imbalance by definition. Then we proceeded to the masculine dominant interpretation of that, which is already another imbalance, another way of weakening life and the Mother Earth's capacity to regenerate life. And it leads to other splits, like the dominance in the way that we define success. That in the United States, anyway, today, material, individualistic success is more important and worth driving at than group success and the ability of groups to sustain life generation over generation over generation. And of course, individual and group success defined as us versus them is also one of the defining features of the polarization in American society today, going all the way back to when we thought we could boss for our four-legged relatives around. Rashad, did you want to say something about who we belong to?
I think if I'm going to add anything to that, it's hard to add to things that Mike say, usually when he's here, because Mike will explain things pretty well. But when you realize that these things are your relatives and you're not above them, it makes, it basically cures all of these four things that Maggie's talking about, just because if you wouldn't do something to your mother or your brother or your cousin or something like that, and you apply that to the land, everybody's relationship becomes better in general. So I think that's all I'll say about that.
I could tell you about a learning moment as a white person growing up in the shelter of whiteness and then trying to learn how to be a better relative among all of my relations. I was working on a book with a friend of mine out west, Joe Rice. He's a Choctaw, member of the Choctaw Nation. And I was writing about Mother Earth, and then I referred to Mother Earth as it somewhere in a sentence, right? And of course, everybody cringes, of course. But I was writing, and I was writing fast, and he said, "Is it okay if I just alert you to your white lady blind spots?" And I said, "Absolutely, 100%. And he said, "Here's what you do." He said, "Go around for the next 15 minutes and tell a mental story to yourself or to someone else about your mother. And every time you use a pronoun for your mother, insert it. And then see if you can keep telling the story." And I couldn't. And it was the best lesson. And I think, in a conversation about co-leadership, those stories really matter, because we have to, if we're going to co-lead, we have to be able to learn. And we have to be, if we're going to remember, we have to understand what dismemberment is. If we're going to remember history in all of its truth, then we also have to be open to changing the way that we speak.
So in a co-leadership context, we can't treat anyone else as it.
Exactly. That's right. Any of our relatives.
Including non-human relatives.
Or more than human relatives.
Yes.
So we do have another slide. I just wanted to get to what this looks like on the local.
Mhm.
And because we are an alliance, and an alliance means that we are a group of communities that are all self-determined or working towards self-determination. And so we don't want to be in a situation where even as the alliance, we're in a governing stance. We're in a learning stance. We're in a sharing stance. We're in a conspiring stance. We are working, by conspiring, I mean we are working together in alliance to change systems that were set up to separate us. And so in order to do that, we have to co-lead. And we have to co-lead with that kind of understanding. Is the...
Put it back up. They wanted
Yeah.
to see you guys instead of the slide.
Oh, okay, great. Well, now we're getting back into the...
Oh,
Yeah, let's go back to that.
you want the next slide?
Yes. We can probably talk about the next slide summarizes what I've just said, but yeah, we can see it. Sequanimas is a word that has become important to us, but I wonder, Rashad, if you would talk a little bit about Sequanimas and what they might have to do with co-leadership with all our relations.
Okay, so Sequanimas, specifically here, Sequanimasak, which is just the plural. It's a word that means river herring, and it's one of our many relatives here that our people relied on for generations. And specifically, Sequanimas means spring fish, basically. And the herring obviously run in the springtime when it starts to warm up. And they were a main food source for our people, to the point where a few of our rivers were actually called Sequanimas rivers, because in the springtime, some of the stories say there were so many herring and also salmon and other fish running in the rivers that you could walk across the river on the back of the fish because there were so many of them trying to get upstream. So this slide here saying water is life, Sequanimas, is important because there's a relationship between all of these things. And it's actually funny that we're talking about this because Maggie and myself, we and the Alliance created a card game that is basically a match card game where you put all the cards face down and then you flip two over and you have to tell if each of the cards relates to each other in some way. And on all the cards, there's things within the watershed. So there could be Sequanimas on one, so herring, and then there could be a river on the other one. And then you'd have to come up with how they're related. And one of the things that we found out is that playing the game, really anything within the watershed, you can relate them in some way. So we had to like narrow down certain things that we wanted to relate. But in this specific example, and talking about our relatives, if we don't take care of the water, if we dam up our waters to build, hydroelectric energy or something like that, or we put how they used to put grist mills and things like that on our waters, and we pollute our waters, well, it has the effect of now our Sequanimas can't get upstream, or the water is polluted, so they just die in the stream. And then our food source is gone. And not only our food source, but our other relatives' food source as well, because they feed other things as well. So then the population of all of our relatives drops. And then in turn, we get into a crisis situation where potentially our population would drop if these things continue to happen, because at some point in time, we're not going to have the things that we've had for generations before. So, Maggie, if you
So,
want
yeah, so the removal of any of our relatives from a healthy functioning ecosystem is another form of dismemberment, and dismemberment causes collapse. So one of the first things that the Alliance did in co-leadership, so I'll back up one bit. One of the things that we think is important in co-leadership is that we be leading about something, right? That we focus on water because water connects us. It's what brings all of us together, our care and concern for the water, because it's understood in all of our communities, settler colonial communities, as well as tribal communities, that water is life. And I think that's understood, right? Our economy here is based on the water and the health of the water. Our tourist economy, our food and restaurant economy, all of this is based on water. So I think that's understood. So when we have something that brings us all together, then we can have co-leadership on something. And the first remembering project that we did as an alliance was an alewife, which is the English common name for one type of river herring that's common here. We did an alewife count because the populations of the alewife have been declining precipitously because of trawling behaviors in the ocean. And this brought us together. Then after that, we were in a position to bring all of the jurisdictions and the major nonprofits together to write a grant, which we almost got before it got doged, that would have brought Siquanimas home to their ancient spawning grounds, and it would have reconnected this whole ancestral life-giving waterway, and opened up the possibility of ecological restoration and fuller biodiversity in the upper parts of the watershed. And so we haven't given up. We're still working on that, on grants for that fish passage, and also respecting the fact that now there are ponds there and lakes that people are relying on for their drinking water. So we can't just get rid of those. So we also have to balance. We have to co-lead, and having something to co-lead on is important. I'm going to need to go back to the next slide. Thank you, Ben. I hear Mike.
We'll take this opportunity to just share with you all. Up there we go, Mike.
There we go. Maybe we should hold off on the slides until we can.
My apologies. Had the wrong time in my head.
Good morning.
Friends and family.
Good morning.
I am sorry.
Welcome, Mike.
Okay. We have
You could
been
just,
taking your name in vain.
Pin that onto your lapel.
Works.
So
I told you you would know it when Mike got it.
and that we can only approximate the voice of Mike. So Mike, welcome and thank you. We're glad you're here. We trusted the process that you would make it. Maggie, you were what you were saying lead in, or shall we just open things up to Mike?
Yeah, Sean and I have been talking about what co-leadership means. We went back to the original sin, as you've named it, the separations and the dismemberments that have brought us to this point where humans have an outsized impact on our climate and are paying the price. We talked about imbalances in masculine and feminine and what it means to co-lead rather than co-govern, and that our co-leadership is based on remembering, putting things back together, and that water, focusing on water, is one of our major connectors. And we just talked about our efforts to bring Siquanimas home.
And you know, I want to comment on just how impacted I was by what I saw yesterday, because there is a togetherness that we have developed that I thought was more unique. And I'm so happy to be wrong than it really is. You see people combining indigenous approaches and best practices in the ways that we have begun to all over the world. And so it was heartwarming to see our relatives in the Amazon present yesterday, and others. The Takaranto group was impressive. And anyway, when you see the lessons that we have to learn and teach each other from region to region, you know that we're all on the right path and we can help one another to stay there. And so I guess that would be my contextual point to start with. From the perspective of tribal wisdom, the protection of the Earth Mother is always fragmented, and it seems to be that way in every country, not just here in the US. And so it's ironic that we all fight for the connectedness of all things without being connected ourselves. And we wonder why we're not making the progress that needs to be made for our grandchildren and their grandchildren. And so, in my view, these actions by Maggie's organization and one other here in our region to put Indigenous people in power rather than simply including and cherry picking, frankly, our wisdom. This is genuine because there is shared power, and that is just not common in today's world. And so for us, especially to see younger relatives like Rashad here and Raheem, who you know will continue to carry this message and carry our version of it to the world, to not only teach lessons, but learn lessons, because we certainly have the protective approach well in hand. But our collaboration, when you look at Indigenous people as a whole on Turtle Island with non-Native people, is weak in general, if you look at it historically. And so we're fixing problems in multiple communities by sharing power and by admitting that we each have things to learn and to teach one another.
Mike, you said that when you were reflecting on what was happening yesterday, you said that you thought that the kind of collaboration and co-leadership was only happening here, and that you were really happy to see it happening elsewhere. Can you say a little bit more about the kinds of collaboration and co-leadership that are happening here, in particular in the context of the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, but then in the broader context of the Northeast Woodlands Bioregioning Collaborative, and ultimately connecting into the Intertribal Alliance?
Yeah, I think the work of the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed is, first of all, from our perspective, tribal work. It just happened to be being done by non-tribal people. We're talking about tribal lands that sit at the headwaters of what turns into the Mystic River as it joins Long Island Sound. And so from my point of view, I think we thought that this was, and certainly Maggie's approach, the Alliance's approach to empowerment is not usual, but it's also not as unique as we thought it was, and that's a wonderful thing. And so in terms of the collaborative, we have really been developing an extended family from a tribal perspective. And one of the ways that you take advantage of the strengths of people in a tribe is to understand what they are as a starting point, and then to create groups of people who combine strengths in ways that almost eliminate the weaknesses of the participants. And that is a modern description of a really, really old approach to living. And so I think at this local level and at those higher levels that Bill refers to, we are actually living our values. We speak about, you know, every living being a relative of ours. And so we're doing a better job of living our own traditional values by this kind of engagement and this level of team building. And so it's good for us, is my point, not just good for the Earth Mother.
And it sounds like it's healing on all fronts.
And healing in the places where we are meant to heal. And so, you know, for us to go spend a half hour yesterday talking at the foot of our sacred hill is what adds that strength from our perspective, because you really can't have complete conversations about protecting our resources if you're inside of a museum, even if it's as beautiful as this one.
Thank you. Maggie, I don't know if you want to go back to the slideshow. We took
A bit more about what this looks like locally, and then that will inspire more stories and connections on a bioregional
great.
scale. So if we could, yeah, let's go back to the slides a little bit.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
Slide you want.
This one. So we mentioned that we have this sense that water connects us, and that's okay, we can stay on this one, that water connects us, and the us here in this local region are 4 towns and Eastern Pequot and Mashantucket Pequot tribal nations. And so this is the fundamental understanding that water is life. This is what brings us together. But there are people who in our world who have been disconnected from water physically, but not spiritually, or going so far back in their own culture that they might know or they might even practice savoring or appreciating water or the beauty of water, but they don't know what it feels like to be loved back. And that kind of mutuality is one of the things that we are hoping to bring about. And so that can't happen until actually we start reconnecting people around water and around the relationship with water. We bring people together at every possible opportunity to talk about water as the main subject, or relatives who live in or near the water as the main subject, but also we are bringing people together to hear each other's stories, to learn from each other and about each other while we're working on this.
And for us, there's a retrospective piece of that that is just a part of who we are. When we bring our young people to our ancestral waters, we tell them the same thing over and over. You do not, first of all, this river has a spirit, and you shouldn't listen to what anybody else in the dominant culture who frankly probably indirectly helped to destroy the river tell you that it doesn't have a spirit. And so we have to start at our foundational point. But we tell our young people, you don't know this river, but this river knows you, because this river knows the people who made you, and knew the people who made them, and knew the people who made them. And so you are the missing link. And we don't do a lot of talking or instruction in the American way when we get our young people to those places. We tell them all you have to do is pay attention and connect. The river will do the rest.
If I might add to that, it is such a privilege to be able to row on the river, because at that time, especially at dawn, you have this feeling that there is nothing else besides the river, and that river is lifting me up, and river is moving me along, and river is telling me how things are in the river, and river is telling me whether or not it's even safe for me to go out that day. And so when I'm in that moment and in that relational moment, there is nothing more powerful than that relationship. And so it was completely unsurprising when at the Tribal Forests and Watersheds camp last summer, we asked, well, how do we tend to waterways when we don't directly control them? Which is a question that we should all be asking at the bioregional scale and the global scale as well. And the kids, and there were some adults in the room as well, the kids piped up almost in unison. All you have to do is change the way everybody relates to water. So once we fixed that, the logic went, then we would be in a much better position to actually take care of this living relative who is caring for us, even if we don't appreciate it.
So that ties back into yesterday's sessions, where the question of power, and in particular, how do we engage with existing dominant culture forms of power? And really what emerged was the notion of being in parallel. Yes. Where we don't necessarily ignore the fact that there is another sort of power player, set of power players, but that we also operate in our own sense of connection to the greater power, if you will, of the waterways. That's just tying it back into yesterday.
Brings us to the next slide.
All right, let's go back to the share.
Thank you. Nope.
We're still on the slide with Rocky.
There we are. So one of the other things that we did early on was to establish what we call planners convening. And it's understood that the decision makers are mainly planning offices in the towns. So the 4 town municipal jurisdictions in our watershed are important to be including in this relational shift. It's important that they're starting to think about regeneration and not just climate resilience, for example, to sort of limit it to one thing that they think about a lot, or because their thinking is also fragmented. So they're thinking about a housing crisis as separate from a food crisis, as separate from a land use crisis, as separate from water care. These are all separate offices and separate people who are not even necessarily talking to each other in the same town, let alone across towns, and even less likely with their tribal neighbors.
That was one of the most powerful points in the Takaranto presentation yesterday that struck me, is how clearly it was illustrated that that approach that Maggie just described literally cannot produce success, because those stovepipes present the kind of alignment that will create success. And so no matter how good the people are in those roles, no matter how effective or productive they might be, if they're not aligned, you cannot create solutions that are sustainable. And so shared relationships are built upon shared experiences. And so we need them with everyone that we can possibly reach. And while Maggie was speaking, I was thinking about how wonderful it has been to have the advocacy of Don, one of the Stonington Shellfish Commission members, who, aside from all of the protective things that Maggie and Bill were just talking about, is just advocating for tribal access to our ancestral waters where we have not been allowed for centuries, literally. And the man just took it upon himself to work within his own political structure. We didn't go to a single meeting. We didn't meet a single person or fill out a single piece of paperwork, because he understood that for us it is offensive to fill out paperwork to get access to places that we have been for millennia. And he just went and took action. And so for the last 2 summers, as a part of our forestry and watersheds camp, Pequot teenagers have been able to shellfish on Mason's Island, one of our ancestral places to live, and where there is still an ancient burial ground that we fight hard to protect. And the first summer, Don arranged that for us with the Stonington Shellfish Commission. Was the first time a group of Pequot people had been able to shellfish on Mason's Island in 3 centuries.
Bill, we have pictures of that.
This year, not only did the forestry and watersheds campers go back to Mason's Island to shellfish, we were joined by 30+ children from our Child Development Center who also had access to Mason's Island for the first time in centuries.
Yep.
And so sometimes the relationship building is just about acknowledging that our access is actually a part of our way of life. This is not recreation. This is community-based at every level. It is physical, it's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional, it's everything to us. And oh, by the way, it also sustains us. And so these kinds of advocacy positions we've just never seen before until recent years. And it's important to acknowledge those allies who are actually putting the tribe first, because I would expect folks in that position to maybe talk about catch limits and things that we advocate for in front of the New England Fisheries Commission. But this kind of tribal community first thing is really recent and terribly welcome.
This just gives you an example of some of those allies who are also part of the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed. We are over 500 individual allies at this point, over 50 organizational ones. And so that includes not only funders like the Long Island Sound Partnership, which is funding a learning community with us, and funding the design circles where all people can participate in addressing challenges together, giving them a simple process to follow. But Restore America's Estuaries, which is up there, you can see the museum is one of our closest allies. This is what a design circle looks like, beginning with learning and feeling, imagining together how it could be, planning together how to bring that about, and then acting together on that. And we know that communities that learn together and plan together and act together, just as MT was saying, when you have that sense of shared purpose, then everyone has a role to play. There's a sense of belonging. Then reconnection and regeneration is possible. Merging all ways of knowing. I love this one with all the little boys learning from a woman who's not that much older than they are, but she's also a water scientist. And so it becomes, this learning and this co-leadership becomes the basis of, or the energizing basis for our relationship in the Bioregional Collective and our hopes for the Bioregional Collective, as well as our hopes for the Intertribal Alliance. And so I think it probably, whoops, I meant to go back to this one. Oops, yeah. So it probably makes a lot of sense. We can stop the sharing at this point and then really focus on how we are related and our form of co-leadership is related to what we're doing at the bioregional and intertribal scale.
I think it's really just as simple as you articulated it, even when we scale up to the Intertribal Alliance, the collective, and our whole effort, that for us, it was a simple starting point to say to the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, okay, we need to get these two groups together that hardly ever work together. We'll organize the tribes and you organize the non-tribes, and let's do some positive things. And literally, that is the strategy at all levels. And we can add lots and lots of detail depending upon whether you're stepping up to the regional level or beyond. But at the end of the day, that process will transcend the borders that often stop some of the protective activities from happening. And it's one of the strengths that tribes can bring to the process, because we not only did we not have borders, what would have been the imaginary borders for us moved around all the time. and so we don't see those as things that are fixed. And we did what Americans today would call co-managed. We co-managed together for long, long periods of time in a successful way. And so for the tribes, it's really about, can we continue to accept our responsibility as caretakers? And that has nothing to do with ownership or tribal land, or it never did. I mean, frankly, we didn't own it, in our view, when we began our stewardship responsibilities so long ago. And so we don't have to own it now to meet those same stewardship responsibilities. And so anyway, these kinds of things that we can apply with friends and create less division among those of us who are fighting for literally a sustainable future where our grandchildren can breathe clean air and take a swim in a pond that's local. That is worth fighting for.
So,
I was just going to
yeah,
add
go for it.
that on the local, it's almost simpler to conceive of how you could have, for example, at planners convening, you could have tribal leaders, you could have town staff and management, you could have the leadership of large nonprofits in the area who were working on the same challenges and concerns, who have been working separately for so long, getting them all in a room together and imagining, well, what does regeneration look like? Setting up horizon points that we all agree we should be working toward, and then strategizing together about how we're going to coordinate efforts so that we can get to those horizon points. That's what planners convening is about. But I say simpler because we can all get in a room together and we can all be in each other's neurological space. We can be connected. We can start meetings with hugs and end with applause. And we look forward to seeing each other again. We don't always meet in person, but we definitely make sure that there are regular opportunities to meet in person 3 or 4 times a year. And in between, it's sort of monthly, how are we doing? Let's talk about this. And we're in the process of creating, with all of our communities, a comprehensive care plan for this watershed region. And we can say with confidence that we can do that, not only because we've been funded, but we were able to convince them to fund us because we were confident that we could do it. Why were we confident? Because we were already in a stance of learning and co-leadership and regeneration. We knew it would be possible to do this and to enlist all community members, tribal community members, non-tribal community members in the project. Mm-hmm. And so I think of that as simpler than when you're trying to connect bioregionally or even globally, and figuring out, okay, how are all of these differently self-determined entities going to work in a coordinated way?
Right, and that in my mind, this comes back to the foundation setting that we've been doing, and I'd say at sort of fractal scale. So you've been describing the relationship building that's been happening with the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, and that really started in a tribal, non-tribal context of joint founding of that. Then the next layer is at the bioregional scale, where the Northeast Woodlands Bioregioning Collective has similarly been setting foundations of relationship. So it's been more important to us to build those relationships as sort of a starting point. And I think I'd love to get to how there's also relationship building and foundation setting on the intertribal alliance side of things, and how that intersects with our collective. And then the other thing that I'd like to bring into the conversation at maybe the next point, and then I do know we have a few questions from the audience, so we'll move to those. But so maybe after we talk about the Intertribal Alliance, give another example here in this bioregion of the First Light and Wabanaki Commission. I spoke with Otto of the First Light before that, and he shared with me information that could be shared on that. But so I'm just trying to map out where we might head in this conversation. But I think starting with, we've given examples from the Alliance, we've given some examples from the collective. I'd love to hear a little bit more, Mike, maybe in particular, about the work that you're doing to bring together the Intertribal Alliance and how it intersects with the Bioregional Collective.
Sure, and obviously the relationship-based view of the world, of all existence that we have, has to dictate how we interact with other tribal communities. And so I have been having these conversations for a year now with tribal leaders, former tribal leaders, cultural leaders, community leaders in the tribes in northern and southern New England, as you would call them today. And for our people, you need 3 or 4 of those conversations before you give them a piece of paper, or they will think that you're selling them American stuff, to just put it plainly. And so it's a long-term process for us. And I literally have not run into a single tribal leader when I tell them we want to be community-based. We're not looking for community representatives elected by their councils. We want them chosen by their community, but we do want to hear from the councils, what are your top 1 or 2 ancestral waterways protection priorities? Where are the projects that will help you to protect our ancestral waterways? And so they understand that the tribal governments have a key role, which is they are the ones who have natural resource protection staff and identified projects that meet community needs. And so for our people, it turns it into something that every single tribal leadership group, every council, every elders council agrees upon, because there are a set of issues that tribes may disagree upon when it comes to our ancestral waterways as one voice, one view. And so what we're trying to do is live another one of those traditional values that we speak about often. And so elders tell us when we're children that we have to walk with 1 foot in each world for our people to survive. And if both of those feet are in the tribal world, we're done. If both of those feet are in the non-tribal world, we're done. And so there's a lot of teaching that goes along with this. And so we have to walk our own walk from a tribal philosophy standpoint and learn more about how to navigate and protect the earth in this in this climate that we don't control socially or politically. And so, again, in those areas where we have something to learn, we'll bring a few things to teach along the way. But that foundation is really what has been set already for the Intertribal Alliance, and literally not a single tribal community or a single tribal leader that I have spoken to in that 1 year period has said that they don't think this is a great idea. And so this is, I think, on a bioregional level, something that we have a number of really, really powerful people to plug into. And so organizations that most of the rest of the world, and even many people in our own tribal communities, don't pay a lot of attention to if they're not in tribal government roles, are out there trying to do this work already. One of them is called the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. The retired executive director of the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society is a Passamaquoddy relative from Maine. And so literally, and there are other national level leaders from the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society that have committed to this. I mostly go after retired guys. It's a function of my age. I should say guys and gals, because there is a former regional director of the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. This is the Northeast region of that national group. And there's a Narragansett relative who led that region for many, many years. Dina Lynn Spears is her name, from the Narragansett Nation. And so when you're talking to leaders who have been making progress in these areas for so long, and they instantly say, that's a great idea, I'm in, it just lets you know that you're on the right path. And so these are folks that literally we haven't plugged in yet because we want to be ready to use the gifts that they bring to us when that happens.
So thank you for that background. And just to help our audience understand, this after our Confluence Debrief Day tomorrow will be a gathering for the first time between the collective, the Bioregional Collective of the Northeast Woodlands, and the Intertribal Alliance. So we're starting to weave these two things together. I want to, before going to the First Light Wabanaki Commission example and then opening up to the audience, Rashad, I just wanted to come over to you because we're talking about relationship between self and other in many ways, but your work with the language reclamation in some ways is around relationship to self and to one's own heritage of the language that the Pequot people speak and spoke traditionally, but that many have lost. So I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about the work that you're doing on that project and how it ties into the notion of relationship with self as a foundation for relationship with other.
Yeah. So the work I'm doing, and myself and my team and my community, on reclaiming our language that was basically stripped from us at a period of time when to speak our language was basically a death sentence. To speak our language, practice our culture, be on our own lands, it was illegal for us to do these things. And our people are very adaptable, so we decided to not do those things in order to survive. And I'm noticing that in my reclamation efforts. So a funny thing I bring up a lot is that the colonists at the time of colonization were so hell-bent on converting us to their own ways of life and stripping us of our ancestral knowledge and language. But at the same time, they were extremely curious about it. So in our area, the English, the Dutch, the French, they took immaculate records of our language. And it's just funny. They didn't want us to speak it, but then I'll find lexicons of, 5,000 words. And it's, did you, what's the reason here? You don't want us to speak it, but you're going to document exactly what we're saying for what reason? So I find it funny. They were the people who stopped us from speaking our language, but they're the reason I can reclaim my language now, because they took the records. So now I can go back and look at what they wrote down and bring my language back to my people. So it's kind of like a full circle thing. And that's the whole relationship thing. But another thing that has to do with my language here, our surrounding tribes' language and Indigenous peoples' languages all over the earth, is that our culture is basically embedded within the language. It's very easy to say that, land, culture, ancestral knowledge, and language are all separate things, but without one of those things, you're missing a part of the bigger whole. And that's actually really evident in some of our language. And I'm sure it's similar if there's any other Indigenous people on. Our culture is like woven into the language. So, for example, in certain European languages, there's genders on words. So, for example, Spanish, if something is male, it has an O on the end. If it's female, it has an A on the end. And that's basically how things are separated within the language between male and female. In our language, the Algonquin languages as a whole, things are separated between what linguists call animate and inanimate, but it's a lot deeper than that. Those are probably the two best words to describe it in English. However, our people thought that everything had a spirit and everything was from the creator. So there's really nothing that is inanimate in our worldview, but our words are broken up into animate and inanimate things. So it's things that have quote unquote more spirit than other things, or more life force in them. So something like an animal, it has enough spirit in it that it can move by itself, right? It can think by itself. Whereas something like a rock, even though you might not think it has spirit in it, thanks to our modern worldview, that the creator put his spirit into that thing when he made it. So it can't move around, it can't walk, it can't talk to you, it can't make noise, but there is a spirit associated with it. And the language shows that. So, for example, an animal would have an animate ending on it and a rock would not. However, if I were to take that rock and use it in some sort of ceremony, now the rock is now an animate thing. During the ceremony, because a ceremony, what are you doing in a ceremony? You're gathering the spirit for a certain purpose, right? So now that object that you're bringing in now becomes an animate thing. So the language reflects that. If I were to bring a bunch of rocks into a sweat lodge, for example, and have a sweat, those grandfather rocks are now animate. They're now animate beings. They now contain more spirit than they would during a normal everyday thing. So that's one thing. Another thing is some of our stories that we talk about that have been tried to be debunked by Western science, where they say things, for example, like, "Oh, this didn't happen. These are stories and legends said by your people and whatever." Then, as time goes on and science kind of evolves, then all of a sudden we have things that are proven that we said 300 years ago, and we don't get an apology or, hey, you guys were right. It's just, oh, this is this. Okay, we're moving on. But so things like that, for example, there's a word that I actually found in our language, in our sister tribe's language, the Nipmuc. So they have a story of the Beaver Tail Hill, which is where their people are from. And there's actually a documented name of the place and the people, which is the Beaver Tail Hill people. Literally in the language, it's the Beaver Tail Hill people. And for that to be in the name, it had to be important enough to that they really believed the history of the beaver. If you know the history, I don't know the story well enough to tell it with confidence, but the hill was a beaver at some point that was killed by one of their cultural heroes because the beaver was terrorizing the people, basically. And the hill was made after the beaver was slain. So the Beaver Tail Hill people. And if that story wasn't told, for example, there are certain things, if that story wasn't passed down, like a lot of our stories here, because of colonization and the Pequot massacre and things like that, some of our stories have been lost to time. But if you look at the language, sometimes the stories are embedded in the language, like that Beaver Tail Hill people, for example. So I hope that
For us, and that was definitely well said. For us, you cannot learn your culture very deeply without your language, and you cannot learn your language very well without being on the waters and the land. And these things just go hand in hand. You could not become a great Pequot speaker in this room that we're sitting in today. That's not the way it works. And so it's a beautiful thing to see what his team and this community, because people are energetic about their language and the resource that it is today. It's a beautiful thing to watch happen.
Yeah, as I was listening to you, Rashad, it just struck me that when you were talking about the rocks becoming animated by the process of being in a sweat and becoming the grandfathers, that's a form of co-leadership where the rock is actually playing that leadership role in relationship with those who are in the sweat. So thank you for that example.
And also, if you think about it that way, for example, there are other things, but the rocks that you bring in the sweat, you call them your grandfather. You're going to treat those rocks differently because they're your grandfather than if they're just, oh, it's just a rock, So it's going to change your entire perception of everything around you. You're not going to slam the rocks. You're not going to disrespect them. You're going to treat them as if they're your grandfather. So that's one of the ways that we think about everything.
Right. Back to Maggie's example.
Yes, and it's a good way to change the way dominant society thinks and relates, is to think about what's the language that we're using and how is that either reinforcing the dominance and the separation or shifting the the perceptions that are part of those relationships. Very briefly, one of my very early friendship building conversations that I had with Rahim, who is another Mashantucket tribal nation citizen and also a liaison for climate and the environment. We were out for a paddle and I was talking about regenerative this and regenerative that and regeneration and bioregioning, and he starts laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing about? And he's like, I just love the way white people make up words for stuff we've been all doing forever.
A good one.
And look, but it's important to speak in ways that impact people. And so it's the reason that we sit here talking about the Intertribal Alliance today with audiences all around the world. In our language, the actual name for the project is Natonkwa, which means all of our relatives. But because we don't want to torture 1,000 allies with speaking our language, we just call that piece the Intertribal Alliance. But when I go speak to my tribal relatives who all speak from the same language base that we do, slight differences in dialect among Southern New England tribes at least, I call it what it is because that helps them understand what it is. And so those sweat lodge ceremonies that they were just referring to, this is the word that we say before we go into the sweat lodge ceremony and the word that we say when we come out of a sweat lodge ceremony. And it's the same for every tribe that I've ever done a sweat lodge ceremony with. They just say it in their own language. And so that's what this whole thing is about. That word captures for us the strategic plan of the project. It is, and again, for us, it's a challenge to treat non-native people like highly valued relatives, despite the history, despite a lot of things. And so, you know, in many ways, the real name of our project is the goal of our project as well.
Thank you, Mike. I think this is a good place to bridge over to some audience questions. We've got quite a few that have come in online. So the first one I want to ask, and then there are a few others that go into perhaps even more depth. The first one is relatively straightforward from Pete Jeffs over in the UK. Can you say more about the card game that you mentioned up front?
No. Yeah, it's actually something that Maggie, you know, basically
We did it together.
We did it together, and the kids in the forestry camp, and a lot of other people who helped out with it.
I remember that they said that all we had to do was change the way people relate to water. So this was then we said, okay, how do we do that?
And basically, the cards they're circle cards, so it's a little different than, you know, square cards. And we did that because circles and the connection to everything with no edges and cycles, things like that. So we created circle cards, and on one side there is the Pequot word for the thing that is depicted. So for example, if it was a river herring, it would say herring, and then it would say Siquanamas, and then it would say whatever that is in Spanish as well. And there are multiple things. For example, there's a bunch of animals, there's a bunch of biomes, there's a bunch of insects. And
we're actually expanding it now.
Yeah. So you flip over one, and then you flip over another, and you have to say whether those things relate to each other. And if they do, you keep the cards and you keep the match, and then whoever has the most at the end wins. So it would be things like I said, herring and river, and obviously they connect. Or it could be something like herring and an osprey, right? And the ospreys, obviously, the herring give their life to the osprey to continue the circle. So those would match. Or it could be I don't know, an oak tree and a caterpillar, right? So they use the tree and they use the leaves for their development. So then you'd get a match there. So that's basically the gist of the game.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like a memory game, except for you're not looking for duplicate cards. You're looking for the closest relationships.
Right, the interconnectedness between the things that are on the cards, but also the languages represented.
Another thing I love about it is that you can add to it infinitely. And so kids who are playing it can also be adding to it, as well as, you know, learning language.
And we played it with those kids. What are they in third grade or fourth grade?
They're fourth and fifth graders.
Fourth and fifth graders. And we had to like narrow down how things are related, because the kids were coming up with all kind of stuff about how things were related, and we couldn't say no, they're not, because they are.
Which is another outcome of the game. Like if you can say how everything is related, then you get, you know.
Yep.
Right. Try to find something that's not related.
Exactly.
And look, whether you all realized it or not, this is a traditional use of a game by you. For us, and I actually have the voice of my great uncle, Rashad's great grandfather, in my mind right now. For us, games are not just about play. Games are about building relationships and knowledge. He would say, even in English, you need to think of recreation as the recreation of challenges in life that you can teach young people about. And so there is deep value between people as well as the educational value that they're talking about.
Well, knowing Pete Jeffs, I imagine that he is deeply appreciating this response. Pete, it's speaking of relationship and relationality, he's on the western coast of the UK and has actually collaborated with our sister bioregional initiative, the Forest of the Northeast, and in fact has had background conversation with Roberta Hill from the Center for Ecology-Based Economies, who's also in the collective, about having education that ties this bioregion together with the bioregions on the western part of the UK, because we are connected by that waterway. So tying back into the themes that came up yesterday of water bioregions, marine bioregions. So just saying that, shout out to Jeff for that question. We have a next question from Jessie Henshaw, where she asks, could we have a bioregional co-leadership on teaching humans to turn growth into growing up to care for each other and the earth instead of running rampant over it? So I guess the question is about, can co-leadership help to create, I mean, in some ways it goes back to your mindset question, but anyway, I'll stop answering the question myself and put it out to you all.
Sounds to me like a cultivation exercise. That's what that same elder that I just referred to would call it. Actually, he would say that everything in life is about cultivation if you're looking at it from a traditional perspective. And so, sure, that could be cultivated with a group just focusing on doing that, is my short response to that great question.
And that's what the Alliance does. That's the purpose of it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Again, it's, when we're thinking about relationships, it's one step, very important step, to maybe just start with savoring and appreciating, right? If these kinds of relationships with Earth and all of our relatives are new to you, maybe step by step, right? Start with savoring and appreciating and meditating and feeling that you're reaching out, and then it's going to be another while before you find those times, places, activities, moments when you feel loved back. And when you understand what that feels like, then there's almost nothing else.
I was pausing there. I didn't know if you were going to.
But it takes a while. And it's not going to happen. You have to really want to engage in a relationship in order for a relationship to happen.
Right.
And you have to have shared understanding about what relationship means to each of the groups or parties. For us, traditionally, you don't have a real relationship with anyone that you haven't shared a meal with. Now, as basic and counterintuitive as that might sound, I would ask everyone who's watching or in the room with us today to think about how many close relationships you have with people that you haven't had the opportunity to share a meal with. And my elders would say the other set, the folks that you haven't shared a meal with, you don't really have a solid relationship with. Just a different way of looking at things. But if you understand what the foundational position is of each of the groups, the process that Maggie talked about is sure to succeed.
Well, that tees up a soon-to-be next session with Kira Christoph, who's actually been here in in the Museum and Research Center and brought her bioregional nourishment and bioregional kitchening to the table, so to speak. So we'll get back to that shortly. We have another question here from Michael Lennon, and he had a question and then a clarification. So his question is, what are some of your favorite stories or examples of non-tribal actors or groups being allies to your people? And so you told the story about Don earlier. He had one clarification. Is it a relation to official tribal hierarchy and initiatives or something else?
Well, in terms of official tribal hierarchy, I at one point in time was the leader of our tribe. I am not that anymore. We don't really bother with the political leadership of the tribe unless we're asking a council person to come join us at some event where we're relationship building so that they can be a part of it too. For a tribe, things that happen at a community level are the highest level. Government is level 2. And tribal economy is level 3. And if you understand what comes first, not everything community-based is controlled by government in our culture, nor should it be. And so, an example would be our traditional drum groups. There are 2 of them that represent this tribal community. The tribal council, they certainly tell us when the government needs us to come provide traditional song, but there is no direction, for the traditional singers of this tribe from some elected leader. We would look at them like they were out of their minds. Frankly, our tradition at a community level is a higher level than government. Government only exists to protect it, in fact.
Any other thoughts on that one? Or so that's the clarification. Do you have maybe an example in addition to the one that I think the one that you used of Don was a great example? Are there other ones that come to mind of sort of to help people wrap their heads around what co-leadership between Indigenous, non-Indigenous, tribal, non-tribal communities looks like?
I think I have an example, and
Great.
it's not going to be like Mike's example because I'm much younger than him, so I don't have as much experience with everything like that. But when he talks about our 2 drum groups that we have, our singers, there's actually 2 singers who have been singing with us for a long time, and one of them is white and the other is Filipino, and they have a long they basically have a long sorry, there's a blower going behind us right now, and he crashed. So they have a history of actually being in the Boy Scouts together, and this is a whole topic for another day, but if you know anything about the Boy Scouts, you know that they're connected with some organizations that basically would do Native ceremonies without Native people, thinking that they were, and then it's connected to other societies and things like that, which is a whole topic for another day. But because they grew up in that, they actually were compelled to learn the real way to do it. And on their journey, they ended up here with us, and they actually are both with Native women, and they, in my opinion, these are some of the people who they talk about in history where Native people would adopt certain people into their communities because they basically embody everything that we're talking about today, and in terms of the relationships in the community and caring for everyone. So that's one of the examples that I have.
For our people, it's never been about race, it's about culture. And that's the reason you find those histories in every tribe of non-Native people being adopted and incorporated in. If you're going to live our way, you're welcome to come live with us, is the traditional principle. And so, and frankly, we see more examples of that as time goes on. People who just feel like the tribal approach suits them better. Yeah, nephew, go take care of that before I have to get up and do it.
I don't know if you all can see, but there is now a blower, a grass blower going behind us. So thank you again for quite large. Yes, yes, it's being driven around. It's not one of the backpack versions. A little bit. Okay, okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we navigate the various challenges. We have one more input from the online audience, but we do have an audience here. I just wanted to pause and check if there are any questions from the folks who are here present in the room. No, all set. Anything? Yeah, great. Okay, we you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to you. What's that?
We can also use this microphone.
Oh, okay. John, do you want to come on over here? Great. Oh, sorry about that. That was me.
I'll tell you it's good.
Good morning. Great to be here. I wanted you to share with the global the irony of the shelling happening on what we call Mason's Island, and also how you talk about the Mystic River without seemingly needing to explain the story of the Mystic Massacre in the context of the destruction of the culture. Every time this happens, I'm just stunned that it doesn't evoke emotion, anger. So if you could share with us, A, the story, and then B, how you thought about it.
Well, as a starting point for context, the river is a much, much bigger piece of our history and culture than the massacre itself. As powerful an episode as it was. And so we were attacked at a fort, and we had a village on top of a hill that's still today called Pequot Hill and covered with multi-million-dollar homes. And so basically with some help from closer relatives, the English came and did their best to wipe out the tribe and burned mostly elders and women and children, frankly, though you'll read printed versions that sanitize it a bit, and declared that it was the end of us, if you read the history that they write today. In actuality, there was something called the Battle of the English Withdrawal that they don't teach about in elementary school. And so the folks who remained, survived, I should say, chased them back to the Pequot River and did not catch them. But in any event, the history is more complex than is usually portrayed. America likes fast portrayals and tends to have a love for false heroes. And so, yeah, we think about that day in 1637 every time we paddle by, but that day doesn't define us, is what I would say, before I ask Rashad to share some more with you about the story. Again, for me, the context is always important before you get to the storytelling.
Yeah, so going along with the first part of your question where you said the irony of Mason's Island and the kids going over there and shellfishing, like Mike was talking about, the false heroes. So Mason's Island is named after Captain John Mason, who was one of the captains in that massacre, him along with John Underhill. one of the things that is actually interesting that people usually don't know when they talk about the Pequot War is that I believe it was either both of them or one of them was actually involved in doing the same thing in Great Britain, in the northern British Isles at the time. They had a hand in subduing those people there, 20, 30 years before they came to our area and did the same thing. So it's always interesting that the reason that they were so destructive in this first conflict between us and them was because they had basically a track record of doing it already. So they knew the playbook about how to remove indigenous people from their lands. But I also wanted to share that the traditional name of Mason's Island, which is at the mouth of the Mystic River, is Chupachok, and it means the separated, divided, separated place, or divided, separated land, because it's a small island. Literally, how far is it in between the land? And it's a couple hundred yards off, and it's a little island. So, Chupachok is our traditional name for that place. So I like to share those things because we don't really like to call it Mason's Island, because it's only been known as that name for a few hundred years, and it has been known as Chupachok for thousands of years. So,
and that place today holds significance for us still. There is one. We literally, in terms of ownership, the tribe only controls one house lot, one empty house lot on that island full of multi-million-dollar homes, where some wonderful people went to build themselves one of those homes, found the bones of our ancestors, and actually admitted it and came forward. And what we are absolutely certain of, obviously, now that we have that one protected lot, is that the bones of our ancestors were found by their neighbors when they built homes, or by contractors when they built homes as well. Nobody said anything. And so literally, we have one little piece of our ancient burial ground left on that island and nothing else. And so that's part of what makes Don's help so remarkable to get us access, because, the people who live there are not fans of our access or our ancestral responsibilities or rights or anything else. And so I've been fortunate enough to have dinner with a John Mason descendant. Underhill was the other guy that was at the lead, but and I've never met an Underhill descendant. Now that I'm talking about the Mason descendant,
There is one who came to our last panel presentation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Emily, yeah.
That's the young lady.
Yeah,
Actually,
from the
yes,
Harvard
that was
Divinity
the
School,
first
yeah.
guess. I had forgotten her. And so we have a really interesting conversation at dinner, myself and this Mason descendant, where he says to me, "You cannot possibly believe your oral tradition over written history." And
Yeah.
and the things that my grandfather wrote were real. Well, first of all, in order for stories to be passed down by our people, they are scrubbed for falseness. Whole communities of people do not pass stories down for 4 generations if they think the story is half false. And secondarily, every piece of the history of your people is written by a single guy, almost never a woman, and almost never any kind of other culture than the monocultural lenses of that one dude. And so you're first of all assuming that his lenses are clean, And then you're assuming that he's going to be completely honest when most of those records were written to appeal to a king or a church or some other, command and control leadership structure. And so it's not even meant to be true in the first place, never mind taking it as true. Anyway, we had an interesting exchange about his view of what history is accurate and what history isn't accurate. And so it is common for us not to think about the limitations of our own culture. And this American culture has that one in spades.
It's actually interesting to continue on that point. When you look at John Mason and John Underhill's notes from the day of or the day after the war, which are not published, they are very different than the I'm forgetting the title of it. It's a description of the war against the Indians with God at our side. It's like that's the title of the manuscript that they wrote about the war 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote this manuscript, and it's saying, oh, God gave us the right to come here and sweep the Indians off of their land, and it was a beautiful thing. It was very easy for us because God was with us. So, but when you read the journals of them, they say, it was basically like hell, and they were saying that even some of the English soldiers were like basically losing their minds because of seeing what was happening, people getting burned, and then they had to run. Like Mike was talking about in the Battle of the Retreat, they were literally running for their lives. They were burying their guns and stuff so that they could come back and get them later. And the stuff that they had taken from the village, because they stole a lot of things after they plundered the village, they actually had to bury some of it because it was too heavy for them to carry as they were trying to run to get to their ship at the mouth of the Mystic River. So it's just interesting to see, like Mike saying, what somebody who's a descendant would say, oh, this person wasn't lying, but yeah, maybe in their published manuscript that is probably was passed around for hundreds of years in schools and things like that to read about the wars versus the unpublished notes that they were actually writing during the battle.
Just briefly, the massacre does define white presence or European descent presence in this area. So when we are remembering and remembering, conspiring together, that awareness has to be a part of our remembering. So we don't really lose track of that thread ever. It's always there, even though we're weaving something new and relationally different, right, in opposition to that. But the fact that we are here, that this co-leadership is happening here, that this is becoming a hub of energy for nourishing an intertribal alliance and doing what we can do to nourish the bioregional efforts. The fact that it's coming from here, I think, is also very significant, since it may well be the first intentional genocide on Turtle Island.
And despite that history, you always have to be open to new relationships. And so I've talked about the dinner with this Mason descendant, and he and I will probably never be allies, but frankly, I look forward to my next dinner with the guy. Fascinating conversation. On the top of Pequot Hill, literally on the site where our fort was, is an incredible couple, one of whom is also a Mason descendant. This is on the opposite end of the spectrum. These people are in a multi-million-dollar home, and they have allowed us dozens of times over the past few decades to come in and dig up their million backyard so that we could get artifacts from our fort, or when we want to have a sunrise ceremony, these folks allow us to come in anytime we want to. Any tribal use of their ridiculously beautiful home, they are open to. And again, one of the people in that couple is a Mason descendant as well. And so there are always allies available if you don't take the ugliness of that history so hard that you stop looking for them.
That's a really profound place to end. We're to the end of our time, and I think that it's significant that we have touched on this question of healing earlier in the conversation, and presenced that co-leadership is not just a simple term, that actually co-leadership requires quite a bit of emotional, psychological navigation and maturation and willingness. So I want to thank the three of you, Rashad, Maggie, Mike. Thanks for the question, John. Thank you all for the questions in the audience. So another excellent panel here. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Bill and Phil and Ben, for making it all work, and Connor for helping with the noise outside.
That's right. So we're going to go to a mindful movement. Jennifer has just gone into the other room here to lead us through a mindful movement for us to help reintegrate ourselves into our bodies after sitting for such a long time. Phil, if you can turn on the sound for here, then we'll be able to hear that and get the.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
People can hear you.
Great. Ralph, if you want to shift it over, there we go. Jennifer, over to you.
Okay, so I thought maybe we could start by shaking out, just a quick little shake out. Deep breath. There's so much to take in. And we're gonna do more shaking out in a moment, but let's go to the eyes. Let's release your eyes. And so we're just gonna press at the top of your nose and up and over your brow. You can close your eyes. You can actually drop your head down a little bit. And then slide your fingers. It's a nice press out. As you do this, and your eyes are closed, imagine relaxing your eyeballs inward into your skull, and come down also. So you come to the bridge of your nose and you come down under your eyes. When you move into your body sense, you are deeply processing things you've just heard, the ways that you've been attentive and participant in a conversation, a very moving conversation. Your body and your brain are processing long after you've been open to and exposed. So over and under the eyes, open to and exposed to the energies, the life force of other people and other beings and ways of being. We're breathing it in. We're breathing in these ways of being that we get to learn about. Let's bring fingers to your cheek muscles and your jaw muscles and just massage for a moment. And now start to offer yourself a very deep breath. And you're listening to your breath and you're feeling your breath. You're just noticing. You're noticing what you notice. Where your thoughts are, where your feelings are from what you heard. We're going to bring the fingers around to the back of your neck. And you're going to go up the back of your neck. You can start to wiggle out the rest of your body up to the base of your skull and to the back of your head. And we're going to drop your head down. And you can wiggle out just in a small way as you're allowing your head to drop and you're letting the back of your neck stretch. We are all so touched by each other. You're breathing that in, all the connections that you feel, all the emotions, all the wisdom that you want to take in, breathe it in. You're letting your head go side to side. You're letting your neck stretch. So you can massage the neck here. You can drop your head down and help your skull to release. And now a new deep breath, expanding and releasing. Expanding and releasing. When you're ready, you could bring your head, keep massaging your neck as you bring your head back up. And you're going to let your head go back and feel the neck muscles at the back relax a little bit and just massage right there in the softer tissue. A new breath. Yeah, it's good. Good, good. I'm gonna stand up if you want to, and you can stay seated if you want to. And we're going to do somatic shaking. This is a really good thing to do, and a lot of therapies do this. And all you're gonna do for like a whole minute, and sometimes it seems kind of long, is you just start shaking everything around. You're gonna step in different directions. You're gonna let your head go and your shoulders go. And I'm looking at the time, and you're just gonna keep shaking it out and shaking it out. Shake out your feet, your legs. And as you shake out, your endorphins start moving and the circulation changes. Keep shaking it out. And you start to breathe differently. I want you to encourage yourself to take that really big breath and keep going and keep going. A little bit more. Shoulders, your back, your hips, your legs. It's good. And sometimes there's a lot of resistance in the body to that. And so you shake a little smaller. When you have resistance, it's good. You can just shake a little smaller and you make your way through softness, through the blocks, right? Softness carries us through the blocks like water cuts through rock, right? The soft flow, the steady flow cuts through rock. Same in the body, soft movement, the water of your body moving, the deep breath, diving into your belly. A deep breath dives into your belly. Let's do 3 breaths, shaking it out. Another one. Enjoy your exhale. Another one. Good. Let's open your feet up, whether you're seated or you're standing, and put a hand to your heart and your belly. Rock a little bit. So if you're in your seat, it's good. You rock a little forward and back. If you're standing, you rock a little forward and back, and just breathe. Heart center, belly center, body awareness. Feel your touch. Your touch is healing touch. Think of your touch this way. Your touch as healing touch. The shoulders relaxed. If you're on your chair, hold the back of your chair and just pull your rib cage forward. And if you're standing, let's interlace fingers like we did yesterday and just draw it back. Good. When you do this, let's lift your chest, tuck your chin in, releasing your neck, and just look up for a moment. And just breathe your rib cage wide open. Breathe your ribs. Try to feel the side ribs opening up. You're giving your back a very, very important counter pose to sitting all the time, because we start to fold slightly forward when we sit. You can twist that a little bit. Even on your chair, you can twist it a little bit. Breathe your ribs wide open. You get that big arch of your spine, shoulders back, your chest is opening. And you're coming back to trusting in this flow of your breath, your connection to your body. You don't have to leave your body. If you want to shake it out, roll your shoulders. You don't have to leave your body to live your day. You can live your day fully in your body. Let's go to a sun breath. When you do a sun breath, your feet are grounded, whether you're seated or standing, and your shoulders first, your shoulders go back. I'm wearing a black sweater. Shoulders go back, and then the arms go back, and then out and up. So you get this big breath in, and you can look up, and that's your inhale. And then bring your palms together and down, and you're just drawing all your energies into your center. The center of your forehead is a good touching point. The heart center at your sternum, your belly, and do that again. Do a sun breath and open your fingers, open your eyes, stretch out like you're reaching out into the world, all the possibilities. And then you're exhaling, and you can close your eyes and drop into your center. Connect with your center, all the possibilities, the kind of infinite center. Do it again. Keep your body loose. Let's do another sun breath. And this time, we're going to keep the arms lifted a little bit and maybe bend your elbows and hold your wrists or your forearms or your elbows. And we're just going to pull a little bit side to side. So that's it. We're freeing your side body again, all that sitting that you were doing. And as you go side to side, let your head turn. Keep your tailbone tucked under. If you're seated, you can think very tall in your chair. Keep your tailbone tucked under. Keep pushing your feet into the ground, very grounded through your feet and your breath. And then you can bring right at center, you can bring your palms together and down. You can do this touch at your forehead, center of your forehead, and pause and breathe and close your eyes for a moment. In some traditions, this center of the forehead is a gateway, an opening, a channel of insight. You can breathe that way. Imagine opening up, clearing your mind, opening up your channel of insight to a clear mind. The channel of insight goes into your body and down into the heart. The heart knows many things, and down into your gut sense, this channel of insight. Try a very deep breath. Good, good. Let's let the arms hang. We're just going to twist for a minute. So if you're in your chair, twist side to side. If you can lift your heart through the middle, your arms through the middle, you will feel even better. Go as far back in your twist as you can. Eyes are open. Look back, freeing your spine, freeing your neck, your range of motion, renewing your body. Come back to the middle. We're going to shake out for about 30 seconds. Just go back to your shaking out. You're breathing, all that you're learning, your body is taking in all that you're learning, all the intellectual bits, all the feelings, all the spirit. Your whole being taking in. Keep shaking, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Can feel that shift again where the whole body is breathing. Your whole body is taking in the oxygen. Shake out your legs and your hips. Let out a big exhale. Somatic shaking. This is a great thing to do pretty often during the day. Let's tap your legs around to your low back. Tapping around to your belly. Yeah, another deep, deep breath. And we'll pause. We're just about done. We'll put hands to your heart and close your eyes, breathe. Tall spine. Reconnected to your body. Tall spine. And bringing your heart into your break, your heart sense, the heart of your heart, your insight, your patient deep breath into your break. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you after break. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. for the rejuvenation that we all needed after 3 hours. We're going to go into a break of 30 minutes and return at 16:45 or 4:45 CST, whatever that is in your time zone. So in a good half hour for another bioregional art presentation. And then we'll go into our fourth session of the day, which is very much then about the funding aspect of bioregionalism. So I'll stop the recording and we'll see each other again in about 30 minutes.